this is an aside from those organizations, but it touches upon something I want to talk about, and it's a bunch of the guests that I've had on this year, but two of which come to mind, and one is Sean Melanson and Alex West. They have an academy that you
Oh, I
know
love
about,
those guys.
and their academy. What's so interesting about it is it truly is for competitors, right? And we want a place where we can go hard, right? And we want to have that competition level of training, no-gi, a lot of that stuff. And then the polar opposite of that is someone I talked to named, Chris Bones. And he's a Hickson
Yeah.
black belt. And he's purely self-defense, a lot of that invisible jiu-jitsu stuff. And I totally respect both. And they both sold me on it. And that's what I'm finally sort of accepting a lot more. And my older age here is just being open to everyone's different perspective and the products that they're offering, right? Like, what's so fascinating is from Chris Bones's perspective, he doesn't even enter the sport, I thought at all. There is no, it's completely out of context. It is all about, as you mentioned, when I'm in that dark alley and someone's coming at me and someone takes a swing, all that stuff. That is the complete context of it. And I can respect that 100%, right? Cool. And what he doesn't get is the sport perspective, whereas you enter Sean and Alex's world, where it's like, we're going to do that. We're going to optimize for this. Is there some overlap? Sure. But they're two very different products, but I can respect them both, right?
Yep. I completely agree. I love that stuff. So the way I've always thought about it is you will have to narrow the scope of your jiu-jitsu if you are thinking about strikes in MMA, and narrow it even further if you're thinking about, I'm not going to be on soft floor. This person could like do anything. Maybe I'm trying to leave. I don't like your context will always change things. If you're doing MMA and you're in a cage, well, leaving is not a choice. You're literally trapped in a cage with somebody. Versus if you're in a self-defense situation, leaving can be a choice. Like being able to make space and get away, like that's also a choice. But if you look at it, there's certain things that don't make sense if you're saying the context is, I don't know what floor I'm on, right? Like I'm not going to do certain things if I think I might be on hard floor. I'm not going to do certain things if this person can punch me. Like famous example that I think it's happened to almost everybody who is, because I did MMA, I did jiu-jitsu, and then I went back to go train with MMA friends with MMA. I did MMA rounds. And I developed certain moves and habits that work great in a submission grappling context. This is back when I was like a blue or purple belt, and I love tornado guard. I went to play my half guard. I took an underhook. I was about to spin underneath and throw the guy, and I got uppercutted underneath my underhook. Blam! I was like, oh, this doesn't make sense if someone is going to throw an uppercut at my face. And so for Chris Bones' context, on the one hand, his jiu-jitsu will be honed for the fight, for the self-defense. And that's perfect and beautiful and excellent. However, if he were to go and roll with somebody who's hyper specialized in movements that don't make sense in that context, he might be caught off guard. I don't know. He seems, for everything I've watched him, he seems very well read and very deep in his understanding. And apparently he used to compete in the past. He just doesn't like it anymore. So I don't actually think that he's the kind of guy who would be all that naive to the nature of jiu-jitsu grappling competition. I really don't. I think he might not be up on all of the meta of, like Woj locks and all of the hyper specific leg lock entries and things that are going on right now. And so in a sportive situation, he might be a little behind, right? Like if like a Musamechi type character starts entering on his legs, he might be like, what the heck is this kid doing? But at the same time, like the beautiful thing about both his style and people who focus on principles and concepts, that invisible jiu-jitsu, is that you don't have to know every single specific movement to understand what those movements are designed to do, right? Like I'm also very big on concepts, which is like, I don't have to know what guard you're doing. I know that you're going to need to use your legs if you're playing a guard, right? In general,
Mhm.
guards involve legs. So if I take your leg out of the game, I don't have to know all of your fanciness. Or in the case of you leg locking me, I know that if you're going to submit me, you're going to have to isolate my leg in some way, shape, or form. Even if I don't know your specific new leg lock submission, I know that you need that. And if I can counteract that big picture, then I can still deal with you. And I think that the powerful way that you can consume both Sean and Alex's jiu-jitsu and people like Chris Bones and all other styles of people is there's always a through line. And to me, the big picture and the big ideas of jiu-jitsu are what allow me to keep myself from losing my mind, because I'm right now trying to keep improving my judo. I'm trying to mix some wrestling in. I'm trying to make sure that I don't get left behind because the leg lock game is constantly evolving and I have to learn new leg locks because there's new leg lock technology, but then there's also new passing technology, new back
Mhm.
taking technology. There's always new things emerging. If I try to be a specialist at every single one of these incredibly niche games, it's just not possible. I'm
Mhm.
not going to be able to have the best worm guard or squid guard and simultaneously have the best wrestling and have the best uchimata and have the best, rear naked. I'm not going to be able to have all of those simultaneously. Not all knives can be sharpened at once. But if I have a big picture understanding of everything that's going on, I'm going to have my knife really sharp in these areas that I like, that I think go together for my game. And then I'm going to have a general understanding of what I think all of these other specialized games would have to be doing in order to be effective jiu-jitsu. At least that's how I try to keep myself sane, because even on top of that, I'm trying to not have my striking atrophy too badly. And there's always going to be something that's falling down. Keeping up with all of your skills is more and more challenging the more skills you choose to acquire.